Hi, I'm Father Tim Brown, and I'm here to talk about vocational discernment from a Jesuit perspective. And I'm going to talk about some students that I've taught over the years, sort of a before, during, and after approach. To talk about discernment and the way in which your Loyola Jesuit education has you prepared for what will happen in the future. It's been said, those who dream, only the few turn their dreams into action. And those who act, only a few turn their acts into successes. And those who succeed, only the few turn their successes into greatness. And of those who achieve greatness, there are only a few whose deeds and character will outlive them for generations to come. It's a motto, something I learned when I was a young Jesuit here at Loyola from Father Sellinger. He would always talk to the students about dreaming and about visions, and he would talk about the way in which our education here really is about putting into action incredible dream. And I go back to some of the students that I worked with back in the 90s, and one in particular, Carrie Ann O'Mara. Carrie Ann O'Mara was a first-year student that jumped into the deep end, got involved in just about everything you could get involved in at that time. And in those days, service learning was something new, and it wasn't necessarily something that a lot of faculty believed in. It took us a lot of work to tell them that the way in which students discern and really figure out their lives is by giving them service opportunities. And Carrie Ann gave a talk right after she graduated about her Jesuit education. Think about a letter I received right after she graduated from Loyola, Krista Cotter, now Dr. Kristen Cotter. And she wrote to me, "Dear Padre, I don't do well with goodbyes, so maybe it was best that I didn't see you after commencement. There are a few things I want to tell you as I'm looking back over what just happened in the last 4 years. It was in Mexico that I realized you have questions and searches too, and that yours aren't too different from my own. It's the difficulty of coming to that realization that keeps students, for the most part, distinct from faculty and administrators. You've helped me to see myself with clearer eyes, to find God with a deep heart, to enter the world with a mind more eager for knowledge. Esperanza, hope, Krissa." And so I think about Krissa and her time here, now a doctor in Boston, and I think about somebody who dreamed and discerned and read, a writing major, not a bio major, a woman who jumped into the deep end at Loyola and talked a lot about ways in which she planned to serve, but not knowing exactly what kind of service that plan would take. And recently, she wrote a little essay about her time working with women from all over the world who were about to have a baby. This Krissa is an obstetrician. And she talks about practicing in a place where the whole world gathers. Women show up in my office with babies strapped to their backs in traditional dress, speaking languages from their homelands. The stories you read in the news of Central Americans risking everything to cross the border. Women from all over the world, from Haiti, from the Khmer, people who talk in languages very different from hers, Portuguese, Swahili. And I couldn't help but think about Chris's time here at Loyola, working at Project Mexico, working in the city, and how her years here have made her the kind of doctor she is today. Cardinal Newman, you might know the name Newman Towers, said once, "I am created to do something or to be something for which no one else is created. I have a place in God's counsels, in God's world, which no one else has. I am a link in that chain." I remember Carrie Ann O'Mara, right after graduating from Loyola, giving a speech at the 1996 ACPA National Conference entitled "Hearing the Voices Around Us, Designing Communities Which Engender Learning." Hearing the voices. I'm continually aware of the profound effect relationships have had on my life, whether in a relationship as a college student studying Shakespeare with a dynamic teacher, coordinator of community service, facilitating reflection with a group of students, a graduate student being encouraged by an academic mentor to struggle with my writing, or a family member negotiating the role of the first child and the older sister. She continued, each of my relationships has helped me to stretch the limits of potential, intellectually and emotionally, experience my connectedness to others, and come closer to what it means to be human. And each of these relationships were formed within a community, whether the community was my church, family, Loyola, Loyola classroom, service learning with the Inner City Choice Program, Project Mexico. Each of these communities were very, very special places. The grace of great things. I think of Carrie Ann and her discernment at Loyola, discernment that came a lot from the classroom. The classroom as she learned from Dr. Miola and Mr. Shy about Shakespeare, and Dr. Abramitis jumping into all the C.S. Lewis and Tolkien readings, and the way in which her education tapped her imagination and gave her an incredible way of looking at the world and all its connectedness. And I marvel at the way in which Carrie Ann has actualized her potential in a way that really touches so many lives in the academic world today. And her speaking ability, and her ability to convince, to prod, to challenge. And I think of the importance of learning at Loyola in discernment, the power and the importance of effective speech, what we call the very powerful eloquentia perfecta, perfect eloquence. And in many ways, that's what you take with you as you interview and speak for the first time. Hear your voice in a different way in the first time out in the world, with that preparation and confidence, speaking boldly with conviction, and the skills you've learned here to say precisely what you are about and what you plan to do, as Mary Oliver says, with your great and wonderful life. And I think of Dr. Jonathan Lazar, who also comes back to Loyola on a regular basis to talk about his work with disability challenges. And especially during this election year, he has been involved with working with those who are blind and working on a project in Maine, helping those who are blind, getting the access to voting and keeping that privacy issue as so sacred and sacrosanct in our constitutional rights. And I think about the way in which, when he was an undergraduate as a commuter student, he designed something. Now for you, this might seem like ancient history, pre-internet, a way for the commuter students to have access to all the information on campus. So he designed a voicemail system. And I can't help but think about his work here having so much to do with his work now with disability rights. So what happens if we step outside ourselves? What happens when we apply the ways in which we take our talents and gifts and connect them to the world's needs? The meaning of building out of your own learning, your own past, out of your own wonderful affections and loyalties here at Loyola. Now the experience of people you've met, especially your friends and fellow students, as well as administrators and staff and faculty, the way in which so many people have encouraged your talents and gifts, especially what you value and what you believe in, and how you've been supported and encouraged to discern. So I leave you with this message: to go forth in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return no one evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, and honor all men and women, and rejoice in the power of your Loyola education.